because of Disney Plus, that's when the market really, really took off. I started to see it with Disney Plus, then WandaVision was crazy. And then I feel like when we got, the Agatha Harkness all along, like that was when, at least for me, that to me felt like that's the floodgates that's now burst open. And one of the things I think is really interesting about that specifically is, there were rumors that actress name, who I totally forget, was playing Agatha Harkness, but it was at that specific moment that it was like, oh, those rumors are actually true. And now any place where there was smoke with speculation, like people felt like there was going to be fire, and everybody started like that. This is like in my opinion, set off like I'm going to spec on the show that's 3 years out right now because they're talking about, such and such book coming out or whatever. And so to me, that felt like it kind of blew open the floodgates. And then I'm going to kind of pull up a bunch of books right here that, these are all ones that are connected to the, let's say, Loki, Falcon, Winter Soldier, WandaVision, that time when we were really, really popping off everywhere. And I kind of want to just ask you guys, like, what was your take on when we got the Agatha Harkness reveal? And even when you look at some of these books, like, do you have any opinions on them right now? I'll kind of open it up to the floor, anyone who wants to sort of pick out a book. Otherwise, I'm going to assign you stuff.
Those damn speculators. Look at what you've done. Jesus. Man, I don't know. What do you think, man? I mean,
listen, go ahead, Noob.
Well, I was just going to say, it's uncharted territory. I mean, at least it was when WandaVision kicked it off, right? Because, before COVID, right, people forget, even like younger people who are coming into the hobby, like they think that this is just how it's always been, but it's not. I mean, we used to have like 3 to 4 movies a year, and then if you wanted to see the sequel, it was like 2 years out, right? Like, and right. People forget that now we have 4 or 5 movies a year plus like 4 or 5 shows. There's a lot to do with it, but what I'm finding is a show comes out, and I'm not like it's a bad thing. I love it. I love the spec stuff, but we spec so far out, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like what I'm seeing here is a lot of dollar books. Like the one that pisses me off the most is that West Coast Avengers. It was like a $20 book, and then
it still sells for a lot. That one has retained.
Yep.
But he shows up, and the biggest slap to the face is in a 9.8 that passed New Mutants 98. And people were like, yeah, man, that's how it should be. I'm like, are you out of your mind? But right. Hey, it is what it is.
Right.
I think, Newbie hit it on the head as far as, we're in uncharted territories because, we didn't have, I will just stick with the MCU. We didn't have an MCU, project for how long because of COVID. So I think it was a perfect storm, probably in a bad way, right? We had a lot of pent up, everybody's like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? A lot of dates getting pushed back. And then all of a sudden, like WandaVision, I'll start with WandaVision. That came along and everybody's speculating, what's the bigger story here? What's the bigger picture? What's the next thing going to be? And I think that along with the infusion of outside investors coming in with new money, it just all happened at the same time, and it created uncertainty for collectors, and I'll even say speculators, because I think almost everybody that collects comics is a speculator in some way, shape, or form. Because whether you're speculating because you're going to flip, or whether you're just speculating because you say, well, is this the right time to buy it because I want it for my PC? Is it too high, too low? But I mean, it created a little doubt in my mind too, because even with the Agatha stuff, Swag, you said it was a rumor. I mean, I think everybody on this panel kind of knew that was like, you were 99.9% sure that was Agatha Harkness even before the show started.
Yeah.
Right. So, we're grabbing those books and like, all right, well, if you grab that book like 8 months before the show started, you probably paid, somewhere between $5 and $20 for it. And if you bought it like a couple weeks before the show started, you probably paid somewhere between $20 and $40 for it. And then you stopped buying them because you're like, all right, how much more can this book really go up? And then all of a sudden we saw the Agatha. We saw the Agatha effect, because all of a sudden we're like, holy shit. And I think some people, myself included, you kind of start to question yourself and say, well, is this going to happen with all of these books now?
Yeah.
And I think another thing, like, and going off what Newbie said, is we also didn't account for the fact that we're used to only having maybe 3 projects a year, where if a project comes out, the focus is on that project for an extended period of time. So your attention's not all over the place. So now I'm focused on WandaVision books before, during, and months after. Now it's like one project ends and you're already looking at that next project. So if you didn't sell the books, if we're talking about flipping, if you didn't sell those books in that window, those books are already on the way back down, 9 out of 10 times, because people's attention is somewhere else. So with all these projects, we have attention scattered all over the collecting spectrum, as far as which character, which appearance, which cover appearance, that it is having the wave effect of these books drop a lot faster than we were used to prior to WandaVision. Right. So I think we have to all make that adjustment for number one, until COVID gets to a place where people are actually going to the movies at a normal pace again. And 2, where the properties we start to get used to the fact that you're going to get 6, 7 properties a year. So
right.
Matt, the biggest thing too with speaking about the unchartedness is the fact that these shows also have a way of let's be real. I mean, with how the post office works too, and I'm up in Canada, but if I'm watching a show and I know this episode, Dupe shows up. Oh my God, Dupe shows up. He's going to be in this. That's great. And then Dupe gets hot. And by the time that book gets to me, Dupe could be killed in the next episode. And then that's it. Right. So you see books just go boom, and then they could easily go down in a week. And we've never seen that. Right. Because when movies would come out, we would, like Matt said, we would have the focus on this for pretty much 4 months until the next project came out. Everybody was still trying to figure out every little piece of information in that movie. Now it's you literally have 5 to 6 days until the next week comes, and that book that was hot that episode could be worthless the next one. Right. So
exactly.
One thing I saw that was really interesting was how you got with each show, people started buying earlier though. So with WandaVision, it was week of that things were happening. Even big books like X-Men 4, that book, it's it wasn't popping until late into that show. And then with the next one was Falcon and Winter Soldier. I remember even 2 weeks out from that show, I bought a Cap 117 for $100. I mean, it was you still had something like that. But then with Loki, Journey into Mystery 85 spiked 2 months out. It's people all of a sudden were you need to buy these books.
Everybody
it kept happening earlier and earlier, and it got tough. It is tough, I think, now to get ahead of these projects. You really do have to look out a little ways.
Yeah, I want to pull Rob in here, and Rob, I don't know if you have any particular feelings on these books, but I wanted to ask you about the West Coast Avengers White Vision book. 9.8s of that book were selling at prices that were beating out a lot of his original first appearance, the
2,800 Canadian for a 9.8.
Yeah. So is there any precedent in sports cards where LeBron James's 2022 card is outselling his rookie card? Could you imagine a scenario like that? Or do you have any thoughts in general about some of these books?
So there's not a direct comparison like what you just said, but what you do see on the sports card side is a guy. So say a player that's been in the league or literally just drafted when their cards first come out will sell for more than players that have won multiple championships and all-time greats. That happens all the time.
We're more excited about the potential of a character coming than a character that's actually in a show.
Correct. And also what you usually see in sports cards is once the season actually starts, the prices drop because it's all about perception drives the prices, then reality sets in and it pulls the prices back. Is what you usually see. So prices will spike in the off season. They'll run up to the start of the season. The season starts. No one reaches the lofty expectations that the market put on them before the season started. And then you see prices pull back. And also similar to this, people then move on to the next thing. It's oh, okay, well, we're in the middle of basketball season, but football season's coming. Let's go buy some of that stuff.
Right.
So,
that sounds
that would be
eerily similar to comic books in that sense then.
For sure. And the one thing, I don't have necessarily any specific comments about the books on the screen, but the books on the screen in general, this concept of the new Disney Plus world that we live in is one of the reasons why I'm excited about parking money in this market, because Disney Plus is an entity that Disney needs to drive the company. That's the future of the company, is Disney Plus.
Right.
And there is constantly going to be either a Marvel show or a Star Wars show basically on Disney Plus, probably 365 with very little gaps in between.
Yeah.
There might be little, we might go on, like right now we're getting ready to kind of start the Star Wars run. We're going to take a little time out from Marvel, but that still obviously drives the comic book market. As soon as we get done with this little section of Star Wars, we're going to loop back around, and then all the Marvel stuff's going to start up again. And that is going to be 24/7, 365 basically, until maybe one day people get sick of it. But I just don't know. I don't think that happens until we at least get through X-Men stuff.
Yeah. But that's why I always say too, it's like, I feel like gone are the days of like Mickey Rourke Whiplash just being like killed at the end of the movie.
Great
and
movie.
It's like, all right,
Great
cool. There we go. It's like, I feel like every character is going to, if they die, they're going to like die off screen, or they're going to get the Kingpin death, like, oh, they were shot off camera or whatever.
Like, imagine what his first appearance would have actually been worth if that would have been now that movie came out. But that book never got to anything. It shows you the difference in how people have reacted to characters from when Iron Man 2 came out versus now.
Right. Drew, let me pull you in on this one. As far as these books are concerned, are there any books that you see right here that are still like good buys in your opinion? I mean, are you stacking a bunch of Flag Smasher books still? Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to flip it on you, because I'm going to talk about the book that is not here that we haven't talked about. I can't believe it made it all the way to me and nobody talked about it. Silver Surfer 3.
Oh, yes.
The book
Mephisto.
That blew up, but it never happened. And here's the thing, that book, it's down across practically every grade, but you look at it now, even with those dropping prices, it's still 2 to 3x what it was selling for in 2020. So we had the steady drip across multiple MCU shows or Disney Plus shows, and everybody's, is this little portrait on the wall? Is that Mephisto? Is this guy Mephisto? And then none of it ever panned out. But this book blows all of these books out of the water money wise.
But like Mephisto's coming,
and it never happened.
Like, he's still coming though.
As much as anybody is.
Yeah,
right?
he's gonna be in
I
the
thought he
book
was
of
Spider-Man. I don't know. I thought he was a Spider-Man.
Yeah,
that's one reason why
exactly.
But that's one reason why on my channel I talk about you don't need to necessarily spec on books that are unknown like this. You can see huge gains in major keys.
Right.
I mean, even like Journey into Mystery 85, that book like went up 5x over the course of like 2 months. I mean, you can, and same thing with Silver Surfer 3. I mean, just huge jumps in some major keys.
Well, let's be honest. Journey into Mystery has been one of those Silver Age Marvel titles that has historically been undervalued. I've got a couple JIM 85s. I don't think I paid more than a couple $100 for any of them.
I'll give you 200 for one.
I bet you would.
Double your money.
But, X-Men's the same way. We're seeing these huge increases in prices. X-Men #1 was so like not cared about. I paid more for my 5.5 X-Men 50 to finish my X-Men run this fall than I did my X-Men 1 for perspective. So we're now finally playing 10, 15 years of value catch up across some of these books. Now, everything on the screen here, if you bought these out of a dollar bin and you rode the wave up for all these shows, you're still happy, because despite the fact they've come down, they're still 20, 25, $50, you're still happy. I'm still happy because I went shopping in my own discount bins and pulled most of this crap out of here, and I got it in the hands of people who wanted it. So I'm still pretty stoked about that. But I think the main thing that I'm taking away from Disney Plus, just the steroids that it's pumped into the market, is it's kind of forced everybody to look at things differently. It's helped a lot of books that were out of sight, out of mind, not given any attention by collectors for years and years. It's given them an opportunity to have their moment in the spotlight, to kind of catch up with Spider-Man 1 through 100, with some of the bigger Iron Man books, just the things that have steadily increased over the the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
So that's what I'm excited about with it.
Drew, it's funny that you
Right.
say out of sight, out of mind, because I always try to talk about that. How I
Mhm.
think one thing that all, with all this stuff happening, with all these shows and all these movies that we're getting now is perfect example, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, they're confirmed. Their actors are already there.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
We get them, but like it's just like people forget, man. And like some books, like you run to them, and then it's like, and then people just sell it. So
The one thing I'll say though is we are all susceptible to FOMO.
Yeah,
and being converted, because I saw Spider-Man 3 and I never cared to own ASM 14. But after I was watching Green Goblin, I was like, yo, this dude, Willem Dafoe, fucking sick. I need this book. And that's how I felt.
Yes, you do.
That's how I felt. So like we're all susceptible to that being converted into the fan after the hype.
One thing I want to say about this slide real quick before we get ready to move off of it. This is something to take from the sports card side of things. Like these quick moving, quick flip books. One thing I've learned on the sports card side, which is a market that moves even faster than this does. I mean, the sports card prices will jump, in a week to a day sometimes.
Per game almost.
Yeah, per game sometimes. It's calmed down a little bit from that, but at its peak it was. Stuff like this, if you're buying it to flip it, don't be afraid to just take the profit. Don't get cute and get stuck holding longer than you're supposed to, especially on stuff like this. There's some nice books up there, don't get me wrong. I would not classify any of those as a blue chip key.
No.
Sell it on the way up. Even if you don't try to time the peak, you do not. There's only one sale that happens at the top of that graph. Odds are you're not going to be it, but you're better off to sell while it's on the way up than while it's on the way down. Because once panic sets in, everyone starts undercutting each other.
Yep.
And the other thing I'll say, which is a phrase that a lot of my people that watch my channel have taken to heart, is especially things on this list. People seem to get stuck in their head that there's this magical rule. There is no law that says that you can't buy this stuff back. You buy it for 10, you sell it for 50 on the way upswing. Maybe it goes to 75, maybe it goes to 100. Who cares? You made your 40. And then when it comes back down again, like we all know this stuff's going to do, buy it back again for 20, because odds are it's not going to probably go all the way back down to the previous price. It'll level off at whatever the new floor is. But you bought for 10, you sold for 50, you bought it back again for 26 months later. Everything on this list, and most stuff in general, unless it's ultra rare, they allow you to buy it back. They literally let you buy the stuff back. There's no law. The comic police, the card police don't kick in your door and say, oh, you bought that last year, you're not allowed to buy it again.